What's up, guys? So I was asked in one of my other videos, and it's inevitable when we start talking about guns of this price range to start to compare this to that. And this is just something that needs to be said about every 5 years. I feel like I've done videos on this before for other outlets, and Atlas has done videos like this before. But when we start to compare, a gun that costs several $1,000s, people start to want to compare it to other things. Now, understand I'm an Atlas athlete, but I also have been in the retail gun space and the gun industry for over 10 years. So even before I was affiliated with Atlas Gunworks, I sold a lot of guns of this caliber. I've bought a lot of guns in this price range from Atlas and from other companies. And so this is the combination of my experience spending my own money and then assisting other people in spending their own money. But the question was asked, comparing an Atlas. In this case, we have Atlas Athena compared to a Staccato. I believe this is a Staccato P. This isn't a targeted at this company in particular. This is the one that gets asked about a lot. There's other guns you could put in this category though. But you start to put this compared to that. And what you have to know about this is that these two aren't really comparable for what you're spending and what you get. A lot of people think that, well, because it takes the same magazine, they're comparable. These guns are built completely differently. This is a semi-custom gun that's hand-fitted essentially to a much higher standard out of much higher quality parts. So there is higher quality barrels, more expensive grips, and trigger parts that go into making this gun than a gun like this. And so when folks ask this question, what I like to point out is that if we're talking about a competitive shooter, someone who's going to participate in competition shooting sports on a somewhat regular basis, every couple weeks, and maybe you shoot a match a weekend, a couple times a month, or on the other side, a lot of my friends, they're shooting a match almost every weekend, and they're shooting a league night once a week, and sometimes in some areas of the country, they shoot 2 or 3 times a week. The round count that you're going to put on a gun shooting competition at that level, I think you're going to outgrow a gun like this fairly quickly. What you get here, the reason to spend this money over this is longevity. Because not only does this gun feel amazing when you get it, but here I've had this gun for a few years now. It has over 20,000 rounds through it, and it feels practically new. Better than this gun will feel on its best day. This gun was mass produced. All right, it was mass produced, and it was mass produced to hit a price point. All right, and so as a gun like this starts to show age, it's going to loosen up, and it's going to start to feel different over time, more broken in, and then maybe even to the point of maybe feeling worn out. Not that it is worn out, but it will start to feel worn out. And so parts are going to start to wear out on this faster than this because of how they're fit and the quality they were to start with, and then just longevity of precision fit of this gun and how everything interacts with each other. It's less wear and tear on this gun to go higher round counts, apples to apples, than it is this gun. And so when folks ask me this question, they're trying to be conscientious with their money. And so it sounds super backwards, but by and large, the people who spend the least amount of money are the people that go here first. What? Typically speaking, when someone gets into competition shooting, they buy their entry-level gun, a Glock, an M&P, 320 these days, something like that, something very attainable that they get started with, and they get into the sport. And then they start to get interested in upgrading a gun. And that's where they start to look at something like this. Again, not talking about this one specifically as a category. They're starting to look into that tier of guns that cost between, let's say, $1,000 and $2,000 in today's prices. So they're starting to think of, I want a better gun, but not necessarily, I can't necessarily jump all the way to this. The reason I would caution folks in that stage is because they end up spending more money and losing more money at the intermediate step. When I would sell guns to people at a retail gun store, I would sell them, if we were just talking about somebody starting new, I would sell them their beginner stuff. They would get into it, they would rotate back through, they would try to upgrade their stuff. I would try to push them towards something like this. And they would say, Adam, I get it, man. I can't do that right now. I'm gonna do this instead. Okay, we facilitate that. And then they shoot something like this for a while. And either they shoot this for a while and want for something else, or in their head, they look at this. We live in an era of interchangeable parts, and the AR-15, they're like, well, yeah, I have the basis here of a wide body 1911, and I can upgrade this in the future. I can buy a grip, I can buy a magwell, I can upgrade a trigger, I can change a safety. In the broad scheme of things, those are the cheapest parts to establish in the gun, but it's expensive stuff to add on. So while you could have a base gun and you could add a grip, the gunsmithing that goes into adding this grip significantly increases the cost, the overall cost that you spent on this gun. So if we were looking at people who bought a wide body 2011 and they were like, okay, but I'm going to start with this and then I'm going to upgrade parts. Okay, they add a $600 grip, they add a magwell. To add that is, I believe, $500–600. So we have a gun that was living in the $2,000 to $3,000 price point. We added a $600 magwell, and then we had to send it to a gunsmith or have a gunsmith fit that grip on there. If that gunsmith is good, they probably charge, I don't know, $100 to $200 to install that. So that's not cheap to install, and you're increasing the cost of the gun. Same thing if you change safeties and things like that. If that requires gunsmithing that you can't do yourself, again, you're adding $200, $300, $400 to this gun. And a lot of people, when they start to shoot a gun like this at a high level of participation, they start to add $1,000 or more to this gun, and in the end, they're still left with a gun that was built at this quality. So they still have the barrel that this gun came with, the slide to frame fit that this gun came with, and the wear parts that this gun came with. So this gun is still going to feel, like a production intermediate tier gun as it shows age, even as you add parts to it. And as you add parts to it, you're starting to spend this kind of money to get this kind of gun. So a lot of times they will spend that money, they'll add it to this gun, and then they will ultimately not be happy with it, and they'll start to get to a place where, nope, now I understand why I would want to buy a gun like this, and they'll spend the money on this. So they're going to spend the same amount of money anyway, and then they're going to go and they're going to try and sell this on the secondary market. On the secondary market, you're going to lose 40 to 50% of what you invested in this gun, just because a new gun's now a used gun. So when people ask me to compare these two guns, which should I do? You're going to be money ahead, and it doesn't even have to be this one. But you're going to be money ahead running your beginner setup for a longer time and spending the big money, making the big jump past the intermediate step to get to premium gear, if premium gear is what you want. You can't build this post-sale on something like this. So if I could save people some money, I try to get people to save the money on the intermediate step of that kind of better but not custom gun, because ultimately you're going to spend less money because you're not going to be trying to upgrade this. This is going to come the way you want it from the factory, and you're going to be able to shoot 20, 30, 50, 100,000 rounds on this gun and not change it. And it's still going to be performing 5–10 years down the road better than this one is going to be. So directly comparable to each other, I wouldn't necessarily do that. And just because they take the same magazine doesn't mean they're comparable. Guns that live more than $1,000 apart at retail live $1,000 apart for a reason. Craftsmanship and the quality of parts that go into these are not necessarily the same. So keep that in mind when you look at manufacturers. And this, you know, Atlas is a premium pistol. They're at the top. They cost what they cost. And there are companies in capitalistic environment that are trying to get a more competitive price and bring you this. They all do that in different ways. They do it as mass production. They do it as they're not as intricate on the touch points of some of the guns. They use maybe cheaper finishes. They maybe use cheaper grips. There's different ways to arrive at different price points, but understand that guns that live apart in a price range live apart if we're talking about wide body 1911s, they're different in price for a reason, and guns that are of similar quality are usually similarly priced to their peers. I probably, in 2024, I think there's probably 3, maybe 4 manufacturers building guns like this at this level, like a world-class pistol. There's 3, maybe 4 people or manufacturers building production guns at this level, and they're competitively priced to each other, and they have comparable quality. The other thing is, that being said, if this is what you want, save up for this. If you're gonna do this, I would look at this, I would shoot it for what it is. If I was looking at, is this something that I would spend my money on? I would only spend my money on this if I like this gun the way it is, and I was going to put less than $500 of accessories on it. Not counting a sight, not counting a flashlight. But in terms of, if you're looking at this gun saying, I need a different grip safety, I need a different thumb safety, I need a different mag well, I need a gas pedal, I would start to say, well, okay, we should buy a gun that was set up that way from the get-go. I wouldn't try to make this gun into something it's not. This gun is very, very good for what it is at its price point. All right, so I would love this gun for what it is at this price point. If I look at this gun on the shelf and I see potential, like I need to add X, Y, and Z, if you run the cost on that and it's going to be more than 500 bucks, I would pump the brakes on that and caution towards maybe this isn't the gun you actually want. I would try to find a gun that comes that way out of the box, so all of those parts and all those attributes that you like are assembled to live together out of the box. That would be my best advice to somebody trying to be prudent with their money, because when I started buying guns like this, I was blue collar and I was paying full boat for them. All right, and so it's not just because I'm at where I'm at now that I say you want to spend this money, but if this is what you want, you should just save up to get this. If you're not going to spend this money ever, then be prepared to love something like this for what it is. I have a lot of Dan Wesson firearms. I love them for what they are. All right, I don't try to make them into Wilsons or Alchemies or Nighthawks. I have those too, but you when you buy a production gun like this, love it for what it is and don't try to make it into something it's not. That's the biggest caution. The biggest caution is don't try to make something into something it's not, because this isn't an AR-15 and you can't just modularly build this into this. Something to think about as you evaluate your pistol shooting options. If you find this information interesting, go ahead, please subscribe to my page. Please leave questions and comments down below. I'm happy to make videos on questions that anybody has, so I look at the comments, and if it's a compelling question, I'm happy to do a video on it. So if you have a question, shoot it over to me, and I'll see you guys on the range.